Welcome to my YouTube channel, Hidden Ways to Reimagine Family Relationships, where I use my personal experience and reflections from my published memoir to help you navigate the complexities of family relationships. In previous videos, I've looked at different areas of pressure that could lead to conflict in family relationships, and I've also given tips on how to avoid these conflicts or how to manage these conflicts effectively. I've reflected, for example, on the difference between the roles and responsibilities and why they don't define you. And I've also reflected on the difference between identity and purpose. In my last video, I did encourage you to focus more on your identity, and in focusing your identity, you discover your own purpose, and questions about your purpose will lead you to the originator of your purpose, who is God Himself. So in this video, I am going to look at another area of importance, which is compatibility and adaptability. I'm going to look at three key things in this video. First, what is the difference between compatibility and adaptability? And why is it more important for us to be adaptable rather than being compatible in our relationships? In the second place, I'm going to look at why, somehow we find it difficult to adapt. And in the third place, I'm going to give you some tips on how to embrace adaptability in your relationship. So let's start. What is the difference between compatibility and adaptability? What does it mean to be compatible and to be adaptable? We know that societal expectations, talks about compatibility as what is required for relationships to start. People have to be compatible, they have to love the same things, they have to have common interest, they have to have common values, they have to be comfortable in each other's companies and all that. So compatibility is not only what founds relationships. Regrettably, lack of compatibility is also the major foundation for many family breakups. But I stand today to contrast that compatibility theory, and I want to propose that what we need is not compatibility, but adaptability. We need to be able to adapt. For example, compatibility doesn't only have to do with family relationships. We need to be compatible, for example, even in our places of work. They do a lot of compatibility tests. If you go for a job interview, they want to find out if you are compatible or not. But again, if we focus only on compatibility, the challenge is that when we're no longer compatible, then we have reasons to pack off that relationship. If we base our relationship on the fact that we are compatible with our interests, what if those interests change? Those interests are no longer there. Or we focus compatibility in the fact that, we enjoy going to the movies. What happens when we are no longer able to go for movies together? Or we enjoy traveling together, or we enjoy going for a walk together. What happens when we are no longer able to do that? It simply means we are no longer compatible. And what does society expect us to do? We are no longer compatible. Then there is a ground for us to be separated, or ground for marriages or for families to be torn apart. On the contrary, what is adaptability? Adaptability means your ability to be able to suit yourself or to be suitable for a change in your circumstance or in your situation. It just means finding new ways of having to cope or having to forge ahead. So if it's a question of compatibility, when you are no longer compatible, the relationship ends. But when you are adaptable, you look for different ways, different interests, different things that will keep you together. So being adaptable means you are able all the time to change yourself. It's not about changing the other person. And I think compatibility, when we talk about compatibility, we actually are saying that, oh, the person is not able to adapt to my own needs or to my own situation. The person is not able to adapt. So when I talk about adaptability, I'm talking about you having to change yourself and not change the other person. So change begins from you. So you change yourself and then you adapt yourself to the circumstance surrounding you. So my second point is, why are we not able to adapt in our relationships? In the first place, we are not able to adapt because we all have a comfort zone and change is not easy for people to embrace. We have what makes us really very, very comfortable, and then we don't want any kind of change. But again, change is very, very constant. And why are we not able to adapt to change? We are unaware of the signals around us and signals that warn us about changes. A change is a constant, presence in our lives, but often we take change for granted. Let's take, for example, the change in our children. We see them all grown up, but we really see them grow. We don't see them grow. But deep within us, especially as mothers, we do not consciously adapt ourselves to the processes of their growth or transition. So, for example, we talk to a 10-year-old child like he or she is 5 years old, or we talk to a teenager child like the person is 10-year-old, and most importantly, when our children even become adults, we simply still talk to them as children because we are not able to adapt our language. We are not able to adapt our relationship to suit these transitions. So sometimes we forget that we move from raising children to raising men or raising women. Finally, I would just want to look at a few tips that will help us navigate adaptability and prepare ourselves to embrace adaptability in the future. The first thing I want to say is that we need to prepare for change. Prepare for change means be mindful of environment and be mindful of those signals that actually, propel, changes in our lives. So prepare for change, be mindful, be very, very observant, and embrace change also, especially in your own life. Have a relationship with yourself to see when those changes actually begin to occur, or maybe those signals, for changes, when they begin to occur, and how you can actually, navigate through them. In this case, I would encourage you to keep a reflective journal for you to be able to document what are those changes. How have you changed, across, time, along the years? What are those things that have remained, constant in your life? And what are those changes? So it is only when you are able to embrace or you're able to notice the change in yourself that you are really able to embrace change and you are able to be adaptable. And again, sometimes, when we talk about change, we want the other person to change, and we're not thinking also of changing ourselves. So above all, I would like to draw your attention to a phrase that originates, from the Bible, which says, there is time for everything. And I'm citing from Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. So it simply means that different things, happen at different times in our life, and each moment has its own appropriate activity, response, or experience. So dear viewers, what I have looked at in this video, I've looked at why we should focus more on being adaptable rather than being compatible. I've looked at some of the reasons why we refuse, why we really don't want to where we ignore, change, where we ignore being adaptable. And I've also shared, tips for you to be able to embrace adaptability in your life. And again, I concluded with the citation from Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. There is time for everything, and there is an appropriate action for us to take at every time in our life, every experience we have, every response, and every activity. So dear viewers, I hope you have learned, from this video. If you want to see more content, simply send me a comment, for example, which of these action points are you taking on board? What are the different changes you are noticing in your life? Or if you've really decided to keep a reflective journal to begin to reflect or take note of some of those signals, some of those cues that life is giving you in life, to change. Or if you've just, internalized Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, which says, there is time for everything, and there is a purpose, and there is a season for everything under the earth. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye.